Hi friendos! Today is as close to a story time video that a booktuber will probably ever be able to do. I live near Dallas, Texas, which is fortunately a place that a lot of authors used to tour. Now they think they're too good for us and they just go to Houston, but it's fine. But I have met a lot of authors, which is not to brag, but I have accumulated some stories. And I don't know if you've been to a book signing before, so let me just like lay the groundwork for you. Most times there's a panel beforehand, so you listen to them talk while you're seated, and it's great, and you're just listening to them talk about their book, and you ask some questions. It's very cool. Then you all have to line up and individually meet the author. Depending on the author and if it's a ticketed event, this could take anywhere from 5 seconds where you are ushered through as one of the cattle in this line of people getting to meet this author, or you could have like a full 30 seconds where you're just looking at each other. Author interactions for me are very orchestrated in advance. I need to know what I'm gonna say, because if not, we're both just gonna be like I have had a lot of author experiences where I just instantly clicked with them. We had such a fun discussion. It's 10 seconds. We didn't have a discussion. But I've also had some times that were less great. Today I wanted to talk about some of the most embarrassing authors' experiences I've had, because I feel like I've been holding some of these stories close to my chest for years and I need to come clean about the awkwardness. Oh, the awkwardness that no one sees online because I edited out. None of these are gonna sound like a big deal to you, but when you're in the cattle herd of people going by this author that you have read for years, that you love their characters, that you want to impress so bad, that you want to stand out, it's been years since some of these have happened and I still think about it to this day. Let's start with some innocent ones. So this one isn't really with the author, but it still counts to me because it was really embarrassing. So at BEA in 2016, I was waiting in line to meet David Levithan, and I love David Levithan. I'd read all his books. I'd never met him before, so I was excited. And I was with my group of friends, so I was totally comfortable, just ready to see this dude. While we're waiting in line, a guy comes by with sticky notes. Side note, if you've never been to a book signing before, people who have been to a book signing before are like, wait, no, keep going. When you're at a book signing, they will give you a sticky note to put your name on, to put in the books that the author knows your name to sign. Okay. This guy comes down the line with sticky notes so that we can put our names in there if we want our books personalized. And so I say, yeah, my name's Whitney, and he gives it to me. The thing about this type of book signing was that we didn't have the books with us already. They were gonna hand us one whenever we got to the front of the line because they were free. BEA press pass. We had to hold the sticky notes in our hands as we were waiting to get our free book so that he could sign it. Boo-boo the fool, I put mine on my name tag that was around my neck because I was like, I don't want the sticky to get off of it by just holding it for like the 10 or 20 minutes we're in line. So I put it on my name tag thinking, I'll get it off my name tag when they hand me the book. 20 minutes later, we get to the front of the line and the guy is handing me the book with the page open to where the personalization goes, and he goes, oh hey, give me your sticky note with your name on it. And my brain, I guess, went out the window that day because in my head I forgot that I'd gotten this sticky note, and I was like, oh, I didn't get one. Do you have, oh, where's, and the guy was like looking at it on my name tag as I was sitting there like, did you guys get a name tag? Oh, I didn't think I got one. I don't think I got a sticky tag. And then he was like, it's on your, I was like, ow. I just handed it to him. It was the worst. I mean, I met David Levithan 2 seconds afterward. I don't remember what I said to him. I think because I was still basking in the embarrassment of I just held up the line when I had it on my person. But yeah, I met David Levithan, took a nice pic, and left. Because that was traumatizing to me, which just shows how much of a weenie I am. My next story, at my very first book signing, I was so excited. I was gonna meet Tahereh Mafi, the woman of my life. And this was at the point where I thought to go to a book signing, you have to read all of the author's books so that you don't look like you're leaving anyone out. Even though I'd never heard of any of the other author's books, I had bought all of their trilogies and read all of them before this book signing. That doesn't matter to the story, but I feel like that detail was important to show you how much of a local I was. So I'm going through the line. It's like this: Veronica Rossi, Cynthia Hand, Tahereh Mafi, Anna Carey. Veronica Rossi, down, love her. Then I went to Cynthia Hand, and it was really awkward. Here's the thing. That day I had been wearing this shirt. Cynthia Hand, in like the 20 seconds of time that we had to just stand there waiting for the line to move forward, she was like, oh, I like your shirt. And I said, thanks, it's my lucky shirt. Because at the time, I thought that my horse shirt was considered lucky because I had met Max Irons and Jake Abel in it, but it was a horse shirt. What kind of person wears a horse shirt to meet their favorite author? I wore a horse shirt to meet the creator of my favorite characters. This was a hot 2013, so I'm giving myself a little lenience over it, but we couldn't have just have let the shirt die. I had to say, oh, thank you, it's my lucky shirt. That was that book signing. Wearing a horse shirt and saying it was my lucky shirt to an author whose response was just kind of like, oh. Okay, one time I was at a book signing where it was like 5 authors, and so the way that this one was we had like a huge line going past like 3 different tables. It was like 4 okay-ish smaller authors and then Tahereh and Ransom. Everyone was there to just get Tahereh and Ransom to sign their books, and so we would all have to wait and walk by the first 2 tables just to go to the middle tables where Tahereh and Ransom were. And the 2 authors that were at that first table were, I don't remember the first one, but another one of them was Ray Carson. And at the time, and still to this day, I've never read a Ray Carson book. We could have just stood in line, minded our business, but for some reason I felt the need to talk to these authors that we were standing beside, waiting without having bought their book or with anything to sign, just waiting to go visit another author. I looked at Ray Carson after this panel where we'd listened to her talk about her books. I was like, I've never heard of your book, but it sounds good. Realistically, she probably heard that a lot of times throughout the night because a lot of people weren't there to see her and we all had to do that awkward standing beside the table, but if things ever come back and haunt you, it's just stuff like this. And that was all that I said to her. I just kept walking. To this day, I still haven't read a book by her, so I haven't even righted that wrong. Okay, next story. I met Veronica Roth. Not only did I meet Veronica Roth, I skipped school to go buy Allegiant in Dallas to get a wristband to get into her event. So at like 9 a.m. when Barnes & Noble opened, my mom and I don't know why my mom agreed to this, shout out to WhittyNovels. My mom drove me 45 minutes to Dallas to buy this book from a specific Barnes & Noble just so I could get an entry bracelet to the event that night. It took us like an hour to get through the line, and then I had to go to school and then wait until after school to go to this event. So it's the night of. There were like 1,000 people that are showing up to this, and we all had different times that we had to arrive based on the color of your armband. Like, it was an orchestrated deal. And when you get in line, you're like in line for hours. It's a 2-story Barnes & Noble with Veronica Roth at one point, and literally throughout the entire store, every single aisle is just a line of people, like one massive line. As you can imagine, this was one of those signings where you get like 2 seconds of fame. It was no pictures, no one from behind you could video you, no one after you could video you. It was just like, do not hold up the line, you give her your book, you leave. 1 book per person, no personalization, no photos, just get in, get out, and go. After waiting 3 hours in this massive line going throughout Barnes & Noble, I get up to the table. I put my book down. You know how you prepare to say things, and I had like a whole speech planned out. Before I could open my mouth to say my prepared thing, she said, hello, fellow tall girl, which I love, which is like, yes, we are fellow tall girls. But my response that day was, and then she signed my book. I said, thank you. And then I went down the escalator. So Veronica Roth, I was the girl. I haven't relived these memories in a long time. Okay, now we're getting to my last couple stories. Let's transition to more Tahereh Mafi stories. I've met her 3 times. The first 2 were book signings, and the final one was when I got book signed and then interviewed her while at BEA. The second time that I met Tahereh was like a dream come true. Basically, before we had this book signing that night, there was this teens only event that you could go to. Basically, if you're 18 or under, you go to this pre-event and you make t-shirts and buttons and you have snacks, and it's like this whole deal where you can just hang out and meet other people, and the authors are there. I don't know if they still do this. I probably couldn't go ago because I'm old now, but it was the best day of my life. So I was sitting there like making a shirt or a button or something, I don't remember, and there's like a commotion, and then we're looking around like what's happening, and someone's like, Tahereh and Ransom just walked in. My little 16-year-old brain could not compute. I whip around and there they were. I have a vlog of this day so you can see me in the vlog being like, they're there, they're there. I finished making my t-shirt. I was taking deep breaths. I saw my entry point and I took it. I beelined over to Tahereh. She recognized me again. I peed spiritually, not physically. And we hugged and we were all drinking lemonade and eating cupcakes. And that all sounds great, right? But listen, this book signing was in July of 2013, right after the Ignite Me synopsis had dropped. I thought it was an opportune time as a Team Adam enthusiast back in 2013 before I learned how to love myself. I thought it was a good time to tell Tahereh Mafi to her face, I quote, "There is too much Warner in this synopsis." This girl knew that my Team Adam dreams were about to be shattered. And she looked me back in the face and she said, everything is not as it seems. To this day, I am astounded at my audacity to tell an author to her face, hey, your synopsis has too much of this one character that I don't like. So annoying. All of these happened when I was a teenager, partially because I was so cringy and awkward, and also because they don't bring authors to Texas anymore. It's fine. But yeah, learn from my mistakes. Second Tahereh Mafi embarrassing experience. The third time I met her at BEA, I was doing an interview with her that is up on my channel. This entire experience was kind of a mess. I was with a group of booktubers that were all filming collaborations, and we had certain times we were doing it and there were certain slots. So we were in this like exclusive area on the showroom, so we were just separated by like a curtain, so you could still hear everyone in the background that was in BEA, which was issue number 1, that whenever we filmed these, the audio was so bad. I had to caption my video, and I don't think any of the other people who filmed collabs even uploaded them because you could not understand what we were saying, and it was no bueno. Here's the embarrassing thing. I really didn't have a plan going into this collaboration. I just knew I was gonna sit down with Tahereh Mafi and like talk to her, which is more than I could ask for. As we're setting up, I realized that Tiernan, the booktuber, he had his whole setup with lights and tripods and microphones. I was over in the corner with just my camera and a tripod. And I was like, whatever. I'm still just gonna be having a conversation with her. I would die for her. Like, it's gonna be great no matter what. Tiernan and Jesse both filmed their videos before me using that setup. It comes to a break where Tiernan was gonna interview Ransom and I was gonna interview Tahereh. Because I'd responded to her publicist and said I'd really only like to interview Tahereh, and I realize now that I probably could have come off as rude. But I don't know, I was just super excited to talk to Tahereh after she hadn't published a book in 2 years. So after Jesse finished up with Tahereh and Ransom, Tahereh started walking over toward me. I was like, all right, so you ready to go film? And I like motioned to where I'd set up my camera near like a bookshelf in the background, like a couple of feet away. She was like, oh, are we doing it alone? Okay, like I guess she didn't get the memo that it was just going to be her, not her and Ransom. So there was a moment of her being like, oh wait, I'm not doing, and I was like, no one told her. Now I sound like an idiot and I sound so rude for like not wanting Ransom. That ended up fine. We walked over and we were getting all settled. I don't remember a single thing that I said to her. I don't know, it's just like a surreal experience being able to be like, hey, let me sit by you for 10 minutes and breathe the same air as you who have created Warner. Yeah, we sat down and I turned on my camera and flipped her on the viewfinder. And at the same time, Jesse comes over because he had just finished with them and Tiernan was now taking over the other camera setup that was with all the lights and stuff. And Jesse came over. So it was Tahereh, Jesse, and I turned on the camera and we look at it. But someone was like, oh, do you not have lights? And then Tahereh was like, it looks really bad. And I didn't have lights and I had no solution. I was just like, no, I don't have anything. And like Jesse and I shared this look of like, and so I was just like, it's fine, like I don't mind, like we can just film, it's good. It was fine. But I just had that moment at the beginning of that interview where like Tahereh saw in the viewfinder like what we looked like, and then she was like, oh, the lighting is horrible. And then I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't have lights. Which is not that bad. Like, she didn't mean it to be like, oh, your video is gonna suck. But I definitely felt underprepared and very schooled for not having good equipment. My final story is the least favorite thing that has ever happened to me with an author. This story is not gonna sound as dramatic as I make it seem, because to this day when I hear about this author, like my blood just curdles. And this is not an attack on the author. Like, I get that most people who read and write are introverts and we're not good at social interaction. In 2014, I think, I met Marissa Meyer. This was at the point of my booktubing where I vlogged every single book signing I was at. So we were in line, I was with my friend Tate, I was vlogging us, I was vlogging the line and the books we had and how excited we were to meet her. And this is one of the book signings that was more lenient on having your camera out and doing photos. So I was like, hey, I'll record me getting my book signed and like record that whole experience. I don't remember exactly what happened and I'm too embarrassed to rewatch that video to find out what did happen. But I remember I walked up there and we said hey, and like one of the first things I said to her as I was sliding my books over and she was starting to sign my books was I said something to the effect of like, oh, I have a YouTube channel, I'm recording. In hindsight, I probably could have asked to film and I probably could have like said, hey, I have a channel, would you mind, before I had the camera on her. But I just had the camera up and going and she was like, oh, it's on now? And I was like, yeah. I've done this before and usually authors will be like, oh hey, and just like roll with it, not to roast Marissa that she shouldn't have done that. She just looked at me kind of strangely and was like, so are you gonna ask me a question? Or, and it was just really awkward and uncomfortable. And then I was like, oh, I'm unprepared for this, so how you doing? I didn't really want it to be like oh, I'm doing a Q&A with you right now. I just wanted to get a video of her signing my book. I didn't mean for it to be awkward. And so I was recording her, but it was so awkward because you could tell Marissa didn't know what to do and I was just wanting this B-roll shot of her signing my books. Yeah, she answered the question, how are you? And she was just like, I'm good. And then I was like, cool, turn off my camera, ran. I don't know if I made that story sound as bad as it is in my heart. You can go watch the video. I don't know if I edited out certain parts of it or if what I said just now doesn't match up with what I said in the video. But to this day, I remember the uncomfortable tone of her just looking up, realizing there was a camera on her, and just being like, uh-oh. Immediately like shutting down, and I felt like such an idiot for not like asking if I could film or like warning her I was gonna film. Take that as a lesson. Be considerate. My foot is so asleep from having my legs cross this entire video, but the pain distracts me from this pain. Fortunately, that is the extent of all the embarrassing experiences I have had. None of them are as horrible as some that I've heard. To me, they were uncomfy, and I still think about them, and to this day, some of these authors, I'm just like, oh god, why did I say that? I hope you enjoyed some of these stories. Let me know if there's any other types of videos, like stories like this, you'd like to hear about. And I will see you next time, hopefully in a more comfortable video to watch where you're not secondhand embarrassed for me. Bye everyone!